At my housewarming party, my sister Diana stood up in front of 30 guests and announced that I was too poor for this neighborhood and probably renting with roommates to afford it. I calmly walked to my kitchen drawer and pulled out the property purchase contract showing I'd bought the $850,000 house outright with cash. Her mouth dropped open, and what happened next destroyed her credibility forever. Before I dive into this story of sisterly sabotage and the most satisfying property ownership revelation imaginable, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever had family members underestimate your financial success or mock your achievements, and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of wealth assumptions backfiring spectacularly. My name is Lauren, I'm 34 years old, and until my housewarming party last month, I let my older sister Diana believe I was struggling financially because I thought it would avoid family jealousy. This story begins with years of hiding my business success and ends with property documents that proved I was more successful than anyone in my family had imagined. Growing up, Diana and I had very different approaches to money and career planning. Diana, who's 3 years older than me, always followed conventional paths. She got a business degree, landed a corporate job at a regional bank, and worked her way up to branch manager over 10 years. Diana earns about $95,000 annually, owns a modest house in the suburbs, and has built what she considers a stable, responsible lifestyle. She's always been proud of her steady income, her good credit score, and her ability to afford a comfortable middle-class life. I took a completely different approach to building wealth. For college, I struggled in traditional employment and decided to start my own digital marketing agency. I launched Creative Solutions Marketing 5 years ago with $30,000 in savings and a clear vision for helping small businesses develop effective online presence. The business grew slowly at first, but I was strategic about reinvesting profits and building long-term client relationships. Within 3 years, Creative Solutions was generating over $500,000 in annual revenue, and I was earning significantly more than Diana despite her corporate career. But I made a deliberate choice to keep my financial success private from my family. I continued living in a modest apartment, driving a practical car, and spending money conservatively on visible lifestyle items. I wanted to focus on building business value rather than displaying wealth, and I was concerned that family knowledge of my income might create jealousy or requests for financial help. Diana's reaction to my lifestyle choices was consistent criticism disguised as sisterly concern. "Lauren, you need to think more seriously about your financial future," Diana would say during family gatherings. "Starting a business is risky, and you should have backup plans. I worry about you living paycheck to paycheck with your little marketing company," she'd tell relatives. Lauren's always been more creative than practical when it comes to money. Diana positioned herself as the financially responsible sister who understood money management, while I was portrayed as the dreamy entrepreneur who wasn't building real wealth. "Lauren's business is more like a hobby that pays some bills," Diana would explain to family members. "She's not building the kind of financial security that comes from a real career." These comments were based on Diana's assumptions about my income rather than any actual knowledge of my business finances. But I didn't correct her misconceptions because I preferred keeping my financial situation private. 2 years ago, I decided to start looking for a house to purchase. My business was consistently profitable, and I had accumulated substantial savings that I wanted to invest in real estate. I began house hunting in upscale neighborhoods, looking for properties that would be good long-term investments as well as comfortable homes. My budget was significantly higher than what my family would have expected given their assumptions about my income. When I mentioned to Diana that I was looking at some houses, her response was immediately skeptical. "Lauren, are you sure you're ready for homeownership?" she asked. "Buying a house is a huge financial commitment and your income is so unpredictable. Maybe you should start with a condo or a smaller place," she suggested. "Something more appropriate for your budget and income level." Diana's assumption that I needed to start with a smaller place reflected her belief that my business income was insufficient for a significant property purchase. 3 months ago, I found the perfect house in Riverside Heights, an exclusive neighborhood known for its beautiful homes, excellent schools, and high property values. The house was a 4-bedroom colonial with an updated kitchen, hardwood floors, and a gorgeous backyard, everything I'd been looking for. The asking price was $850,000, which was within my budget since I planned to purchase the property with cash from my business profits and savings. I made an offer and went through the inspection and approval process without mentioning the specific details to my family. I told Diana I was working on buying a house but didn't share the location, price, or financing details. Diana's response to my house buying plans was predictably condescending. "I hope you're not overextending yourself financially," she warned. "A lot of first-time buyers get in over their heads and end up house poor. Just make sure you can actually afford the mortgage payments," she advised. "I'd hate to see you lose a house because you were unrealistic about your income." Diana's concern about my ability to afford mortgage payments was ironic, since I was planning to buy the house outright without any financing. When my offer was accepted and I scheduled a closing date, I decided to plan a housewarming party to celebrate the purchase and finally reveal my actual financial situation to family and friends. I sent invitations for a housewarming celebration with my new address in Riverside Heights. Several family members seemed surprised by the upscale location. "Are you sure this address is right?" my aunt asked when she received the invitation. "Riverside Heights is such an expensive area." "Maybe Lauren is house-sitting or renting a room," Diana suggested to family members. "There's no way she could afford to buy in that neighborhood." Diana's assumption that I was house-sitting or renting a room reflected her continued belief that my business income was insufficient for a significant property purchase. The day of the housewarming party, I was excited to finally share my home and my success with family and friends. I had invited about 30 people, including family members, close friends, and some business colleagues. The house looked beautiful with fresh flowers, catered food, and a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Guests began arriving around 2 p.m., and most people seemed impressed by the property and the neighborhood. "Lauren, this house is gorgeous," my cousin said as she toured the rooms. "You've done such a beautiful job with the decorating." "The neighborhood is so nice," added my college friend. "You must love living here." For the first hour, the party was exactly what I'd hoped for. People were enjoying the food, admiring the house, and celebrating my new home with genuine enthusiasm. Diana arrived about an hour into the party and immediately began making observations about the house and my living situation. "This is a really nice place," she said, walking through the rooms with a critical eye. "It must be expensive to rent something like this." "How many roommates do you have?" Diana asked, examining the bedrooms. "You need several people to split costs in a neighborhood like this." Diana's assumption that I was renting with roommates reflected her belief that the house was beyond my financial capabilities as a sole owner. About 2 hours into the party, as guests were mingling and enjoying dessert, Diana asked for everyone's attention. "I'd like to say something about Lauren and her new living situation," Diana announced, standing up with her wine glass. I assumed Diana was going to give a supportive toast about my new home, despite her earlier questions about roommates and rental costs. "Lauren has always been optimistic about her financial capabilities," Diana began, her tone suggesting this wasn't going to be the celebratory speech I'd expected. The room fell quiet as guests realized Diana's comments were taking an unexpectedly critical direction. "I think it's important for everyone to understand the reality of Lauren's housing situation," Diana continued, looking around at the assembled guests. "Lauren is too poor for this neighborhood," Diana declared, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "She's probably renting with multiple roommates to afford living in Riverside Heights." I felt my face burning with humiliation and anger as 30 guests listened to Diana publicly question my ability to afford my own home. "I don't want people to be impressed by Lauren's apparent success when the reality is that she's financially overextended and probably struggling to make rent," Diana continued. The room was completely silent. Guests were staring at Diana, then at me, trying to understand why this attack was happening at my housewarming party. "Someone needs to be realistic about Lauren's financial limitations," Diana concluded. "This lifestyle isn't sustainable for someone with her income level." That's when I walked calmly to my kitchen drawer. I had kept all my house purchase documents organized in a file folder in my kitchen for easy access during the moving process. The folder included the purchase contract, closing documents, and property deed. Diana, since you've decided to make public claims about my financial situation and housing arrangements, I think it's time to clarify some facts. I pulled out the property purchase contract and opened it to the relevant pages. This is my property purchase contract, I announced to the room. I'd like to read some details so everyone can understand my actual housing situation. I found the section showing the purchase price and financing details. The purchase price for this house was $850,000, I read aloud. Payment method: cash purchase, no mortgage financing required. Gasps rippled through the room as guests processed this information. Diana's face had gone completely white. The buyer listed on this contract is Lauren Mitchell, purchasing as sole owner, I continued reading. No co-signers, no roommates, no rental agreements. I closed the contract and looked directly at Diana. So when you suggest that I'm too poor for this neighborhood and probably renting with roommates, the legal documents show that I purchased this $850,000 house outright with cash from my business profits. The room erupted in amazed congratulations and applause. 30 guests were celebrating my property ownership while Diana stood frozen in humiliation. Diana, you've spent years telling family members that my business is more like a hobby and that I'm not building real financial security, I continued. This house purchase suggests otherwise. I walked to another kitchen drawer and pulled out my business financial statements. Creative Solutions Marketing generated $750,000 in revenue last year, I announced. My personal net worth is approximately $1.2 million, including business equity, real estate, and investments. Diana's mouth had dropped open and stayed that way as I revealed financial details that completely contradicted her assumptions about my economic situation. I kept my financial success private because I wanted to focus on building wealth rather than displaying it, I explained to the room. But since Diana chose to publicly question my ability to afford my own home, I felt obligated to share the actual facts. Party atmosphere transformed immediately. Guests began approaching me with amazement about my business success and shock at Diana's behavior. Lauren, I had no idea your marketing company was so successful, my uncle said. Buying an $850,000 house with cash is incredible. Diana's comments were completely inappropriate, my aunt added. How could she be so wrong about your financial situation? My business colleagues were particularly impressed by the financial revelations. I knew Creative Solutions was doing well, but I didn't realize you'd built such substantial wealth, one client said. This explains why you always seemed so confident about long-term business investments. Diana left the party immediately after my presentation of the property documents. She gathered her things and exited without speaking to me or anyone else who had witnessed her public attack and subsequent humiliation. For the rest of the evening, guests approached me to congratulate me on my business success and express their amazement at the property purchase details. Lauren, you should be proud of what you've accomplished, my college friend said. Building $1 million business and buying a house with cash is amazing. The drive to my beautiful new home that evening gave me time to process what had happened. Diana's public attack had been humiliating, but revealing my actual financial situation had felt liberating after years of hiding my success. I realized that Diana's criticism of my financial choices had been based on jealousy and insecurity rather than genuine concern for my welfare. She'd needed to believe I was struggling financially to feel better about her own more modest achievements. The property documents hadn't just defended my homeownership. They'd revealed that I'd far exceeded Diana's financial success despite her years of positioning herself as the responsible sister with better money management skills. The aftermath of the housewarming confrontation created lasting changes in family dynamics and my relationship with Diana. Diana never apologized for her speech or acknowledged that her assumptions about my financial situation had been completely wrong. Instead, she seemed to avoid family gatherings where my business success might be discussed. Word of the property purchase details spread among our extended family, creating significant embarrassment for Diana's years of comments about my financial limitations. "I can't believe Diana was so wrong about Lauren's business," my grandmother said. "And the way she attacked her at her own housewarming party was terrible." Several family members approached me to apologize for not challenging Diana's dismissive comments about my career over the years. "I should have questioned Diana's assumptions about your income," my father admitted. "It was obvious your business was doing well, but I let Diana position herself as the expert on financial success." Diana's reputation within our family was seriously damaged by her housewarming speech and the subsequent revelation of her complete misunderstanding of my financial situation. "Diana always acted like she was the successful sister," my cousin observed. "But it turns out Lauren was building much more wealth while Diana was criticizing her choices." 6 months later, I'm happily settled in my beautiful home and continuing to grow creative solutions marketing. The business is on track to generate over $900,000 in revenue this year, and I'm exploring opportunities for expansion and additional real estate investments. The house itself has become everything I hoped it would be, not just a beautiful place to live, but a symbol of what's possible when you persist with unconventional career paths despite family skepticism. I've hosted several more gatherings, and each time I watch guests enjoy the space, I'm reminded of the journey that made it possible. I've also started using my home office more strategically for client meetings. Having clients visit my house has actually strengthened business relationships, as it demonstrates the kind of substantial success that makes people confident in choosing creative solutions for their marketing needs. "Your home office setup is incredibly professional," one major client commented during a strategy session. "It's clear you've built something substantial here. That gives us confidence in your ability to grow our business too." The networking opportunities that come with living in Riverside Heights have also been valuable for business development. Several neighbors are business owners or executives who have become clients or referral sources. "I had no idea we had such a successful marketing expert living in the neighborhood," one neighbor said during a community event. "We should talk about helping my company with digital strategy." I've also become more open about my financial success with family and friends. Hiding my achievements had been intended to avoid jealousy, but it had actually enabled Diana's condescending behavior and false narratives about my capabilities. The decision to be more transparent about my business success has had overwhelmingly positive effects. Instead of family members making assumptions about my financial limitations, they now ask for advice about their own entrepreneurial ideas and investment decisions. "Lauren, I'm thinking about starting a consulting practice in my field," my brother mentioned recently. "Could you share some insights about building a service business?" "Do you think real estate is a good investment right now?" my aunt asked during a family dinner. "You've obviously made smart property decisions." These conversations feel much more genuine and supportive than the years of hiding my achievements to avoid Diana's criticism. I've also started speaking at local business events about entrepreneurship and digital marketing strategy. The speaking opportunities have been great for business development, but they've also been personally satisfying as ways to help other entrepreneurs avoid some of the challenges I faced while building creative solutions. "Your story about family skepticism really resonates," one audience member said after a presentation. "I've been dealing with similar criticism from relatives who don't understand freelancing. It's encouraging to see how successful you've become." The most meaningful development has been my decision to mentor other women entrepreneurs who are building service-based businesses. I remember how isolating it felt to pursue an unconventional path while dealing with family doubt, and I want to provide the support I wished I'd had during those difficult early years. "Working with Lauren has been transformative," one mentee said. "She understands the challenges of building a business while dealing with people who don't believe in your vision. Her practical advice and emotional support have been invaluable. I've also used my financial success to support causes I care about. I've made substantial donations to organizations that provide business loans and mentorship to women entrepreneurs, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds. Your donation will help us fund microloans for 20 women starting their first businesses," the nonprofit director told me. You're creating opportunities for other entrepreneurs to achieve the kind of success you've built. Diana and I have had minimal direct contact since the housewarming incident, but I've heard through family that she's struggling with the new family dynamic where I'm viewed as the successful sister. Diana seems uncomfortable at family gatherings now, my cousin observed. She used to be so confident about giving financial advice, but now she barely participates in those conversations. My mother mentioned that Diana had asked several questions about my business success, apparently trying to understand how she'd been so wrong about my financial situation. Diana wanted to know if you'd had help from investors or business partners, Mom said. I think she's having trouble accepting that you built everything on your own. The most telling incident came during a recent family wedding when Diana made a comment about people who get lucky with business timing. Lauren's marketing company did well because she started at the right time, Diana told our cousin. The digital marketing boom made her business valuable, but it was mostly fortunate timing. I decided not to engage with Diana's attempt to minimize my success as luck, rather than strategic planning and hard work. Her need to reframe my achievements as fortunate accidents rather than acknowledging her misjudgment speaks to deeper issues with accepting when she's been wrong. The wedding incident reminded me why I'd been right to reveal my financial situation at the housewarming party. Diana was never going to acknowledge my business success or stop undermining my achievements until she was forced to confront undeniable evidence. The experience taught me several important lessons about family dynamics, financial privacy, and the costs of hiding success. First, family members who constantly criticize your career choices and financial decisions may be motivated by their own insecurities about their achievements rather than genuine concern for your welfare. Second, hiding financial success to avoid jealousy can sometimes enable others to create false narratives about your capabilities and work ethic. Third, documentation and evidence are powerful tools for confronting false assumptions about your financial situation, especially when those assumptions are made publicly. Most importantly, the experience reinforced that building wealth through entrepreneurship often requires patience and persistence, but the financial rewards can far exceed what's possible through traditional employment. Today, I'm proud of the business I've built and the financial independence I've achieved. Diana's predictions about my financial limitations have been thoroughly disproven, and I've learned to trust my own judgment about money management rather than accepting others' criticism of my choices. The housewarming incident has become something of a family legend about the dangers of making assumptions about others' financial situations and the importance of supporting rather than undermining family members' entrepreneurial efforts. If you've experienced family members questioning your business success or making assumptions about your financial capabilities, know that their criticism often says more about their own relationship with money and achievement than about your actual potential. Document your accomplishments, don't hide success to appease others' insecurities, and remember that sometimes the most satisfying response to financial criticism is simply showing the receipts that prove your worth. If you enjoyed this story of housewarming humiliation and property contract vindication, please give this video a like and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of wealth assumptions backfiring completely. Share your own experiences with family financial criticism in the comments below. Have you ever had relatives underestimate your business success or assume you couldn't afford your lifestyle? Remember that entrepreneurial success often looks different from traditional career advancement, and sometimes the best response to people who say you're too poor for something is documentation that proves how wrong they are. Thank you for listening to my story of property ownership vindication and the contract that silenced family doubters. Sometimes the best response to people who question your financial capabilities is simply showing them the deed with your name on it.